Hey, howdy, folks. So, welcome to the ComicBase Livestream. I'm your host, Pete Bickford. For once, we started with both sound and video seeming to work. I guess the malfunction now is going to be my hair. Yes, we're just going to do this. All right, cool. Anyway, guys, how y'all doing? I'm Pete Bickford. I about 32 years ago had the idea of having a multimedia database of my comic books, and I thought, well, I would have this would be great. What I'll do is I'll set this whole thing up and I'll bring it around to comic shows and we can scan in some covers and when people go to look up, say, the first appearance of Nick Fury, they'll say, why, it says right here that's Strange Tales number 135. And do you have it in stock? Why, yes, I do. And the plan at that point, and it was the early 90s, you got to realize it was a different world, was that people would go around, see that I had a computer set up at comic conventions and say, what is this? I will look at it because maybe it's a game. And then they would get tricked into buying lots of comic books. That was the entire business concept behind what later became known as ComicBase. And then after a while of doing this and selling a bunch of comic books that way, my wife and I discovered that comic books were really, really heavy, and that, we were feeling like old people, like after doing this, just, lift, however many 60 boxes or however 160, probably at that point, boxes in and out of, cars and uploading ramps and everything, set them up for the show, haul them all back, minus a couple free at the end of the day, lather, rinse, repeat. And we thought, well, wait a minute, comics are heavy, and at the time they didn't sell for all that much, and software is really light. So people keep asking about the software. Maybe we should work on this, and then who knew? 32 years later, and here we are. So anyway, so yeah, this is ComicBase, guys. Since we talked last, my robots got themselves another 5K medal. I'll just say they left it all out on the field, and the fact that I was crippled for the next 2 days has nothing to do with it. But been doing that, been tidying up things around the house in terms of both ComicBase features, and Atomic Avenue definitely has gotten some love. And then today, of course, we get to finally announce that yes, we have crossed the 1.2 million cover mark in ComicBase, which is a number so ludicrous. It's literally 4 times the number of comics that we estimated had ever existed in history when we first started doing ComicBase, which probably tells you A, how much the comic book world has grown, but also B, how deluded we were to start this project in the first place. But here we are. Anyway, guys, thank you all for joining us here. And I do want to say hi to folks. Like being first in the door here from the Pacific Northwest, where it is apparently not bad at all. Weinberg's joining us. He points out that ComicBase 4 had 5,000 covers. Now ComicBase 2026 is over 1.2 million. Yeah, we were saying behind the scenes, Greg Hecht, our producer, is in town now, that 5,000 covers is like a good weekly update for us. It's not even like particularly notable. It's just sort of like run of the mill for us now. But yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Agent DeCamp's joining us here. Agent DeCamp, you'll be happy to know that we took care of that bug that we talked about earlier with the mobile app, and so that it may even be available in the store right now. You don't know, but that got submitted today, so we got that going. More on that in a minute. Tim Legrello, aka Tim Kilbreth, out here from Rockford, Illinois. And let's see here. Yeah, we're gonna see Greg today. Greg is in the house, so malefactors, watch out. And look, I scared myself there because on my demo screen I had the ComicBase screensaver thing set up to go in, and because I've been yapping so long, the screensaver kicked in. Let's see what else is going on here. Yes, and I was going, Greg. Anyway, so let me see here. Brian Price is joining us here. At Div187, welcome. And he says, "I'm the only one who finds pressure washing a sidewalk therapeutic." No, pressure washing is awesome. Back when we were teamed up with the comics buyers guys, guys, they're out in Iowa, Wisconsin. We had great talks with the editor-in-chief at the time over there, Brent Frankenhoff, about how he enjoyed pressure washing the cows. That's if you're not going to tip them over, that's apparently a thing you do in rural Wisconsin. I don't know. I'm kind of a suburban kid. Anyway, let's see here. Chris Prozol's joining us here, and let's see here. And I think Jet City Comics, hi, welcome. And okay, so I think everyone's in the house. Let's get on with the news. So Before we get onto the coverish thing, let me cover a bunch of other things. Yeah, it's like a segue, something like that. We're going to have the new Penguin, Random House, and Lunar files incorporated into this week's update. Our editorial staff is working on that right now, and that should make it into this week's update. Probably going to be Friday again. For some reason, Lunar's decided they don't feel like delivering on Wednesday this anymore, and Penguin is always delivering on Friday. So Friday night is looking like our new update time. And because we get the books in at about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, usually by about 7 o'clock at night is usually when we're going to see Central Time. It'd be what I'd say the ETA on this week's update is. But look for that one to have quite a lot of new content with it. It'll have everything that is shipping, or at least is solicited from the month of May. So what does that mean? Shipping in August, something like that, maybe September. Lots and lots of stuff there, as well as the fully updated content, picture set will be available for download at that point. Let me see here. Atomic Avenue. If you guys have been watching that one lately, you've probably seen that there's gotten a real facelift of late. A lot of changes, basically locked in at this point. It's looking pretty slick. If there's anything that you guys see that you don't like in particular, please point them out to me. I'll go ahead and give you my number on that one, because I've been working on that revamp effort. pbickford@human-computing.com, definitely called out my way. But I hope you guys are enjoying the new things. It seems like it's really falling into line. It's turning to the system that I'd hoped to see in the 2020s, and it's really nice to see. So one thing I really dig about it is, especially if you've uploaded your own inventory to the cloud for use with the mobile app, you can actually use that to make your experience on Atomic Avenue better, because Atomic Avenue is basically powered off the same database that ComicBase is. So if you say, hey, go ahead and look at my inventory, and you post your stuff to it, it actually can say, as you're browsing things, hey, don't bother me with listing for things I already own. And so it makes it much easier now, just by browsing titles, to say, hey, look, I don't care about variants, or I do care about variants, whatever your preference is. Exclude the ones I already have and just show me the ones I don't have. And it's really easy now to fill in runs. And I find it's like a really cool use case here that we were never able to do before. And it's just, it's kind of neat browsing the system now, so I'm digging it. And let me see what else is new. Definitely, I'm going to say my own sales on the site have definitely been kind of peppy of late. So I'm hope you guys are liking it. But again, if you guys see anything else that you wish it would do that's not doing to your satisfaction, drop a note my way. I'll see what I can make happen for you. All right, some other things are happening on. One of the things that we emphasized this last week on Atomic Avenue is actually getting rid of a lot of stuff. There's a lot of cruft that is piled up over the genesis of that system since we first started experimenting with different features from long, long ago. One of the things I removed was it's almost a 20-year-old interface it was like on a mobile app for your iPhone 4 or whatever it was at the time. You could download a progressive web page that you could punch in a UPC code. It might have even been an ISBN code. It was something like beyond old, and it would try to find the comic for you, which at the time was a killer trick. These days, much better stuff, and I don't think that software's been supported for about 10-15 years. So it was nice actually getting rid of endpoints, because if you don't get rid of endpoints on your site, the thing you'll find is in your web logs. That is the thing that all the the scrapers and hackers and crawlers spend all their time attacking all day, and even if there's nothing there to go, it does waste a lot of your server's time. So it's actually been kind of fun ripping out stuff, so it's like less things to worry about, so that's kind of neat. One thing I will say is, if you guys ever get 404 or 410 errors that you did not expect, probably the answer is update your software. I mean, my guess is you would have to be using quite old software to be able to do stuff like that. But if that does happen, once again, if updating the software doesn't fix it for you, do send us a note. But we're trying to retire some of the old so we can make way for the new. So that has actually been an effort that I've been working with this last week. Speaking of other things that have been going on there are new Android and iOS apps available either right this moment or very shortly in the stores. Look for version 26.1. and they are going to have a couple things, answered a couple issues that had been reported from folks about using the back button out of different areas of the system. Like if you just reviewed a report and you hit back, it wasn't refreshing the screen right. And same thing goes if you were looking at a search results, like browsing Detective Comics or Batman or something, and you just want to go down the list and look at each one in detail. It now pops you back to exactly where you in the list that you weren't before. These things sound really, really easy and obvious, and you would not believe how convoluted they are when you actually get into doing this in a mobile web app or a mobile app. But that being said, while we were in there, we also managed to pull out some new tricks so that image caching and loading is actually quite a bit faster than before. And I think as important as anything, it's more regular than before, because one thing I did notice is that the performance you'd see on the mobile app really varied wildly depending on when, like, is this the first launch of the program? Did you have other apps going on your phone and so forth? Because we weren't striking a particularly great balance, I'm going to say, as far as using the caching that you want to do to load up lots and lots of images, because obviously comics, we're all about the images, right? That's the kind of the theme of the show. But you also start realizing how really, really, really limited the actual RAM is, or available RAM is on a typical mobile phone. I mean, if you've got like a top-of-the-line iPhone Max or something, then you're probably cruising. But if you've just got your generic, Samsung or Motorola or whatever else, it's sort of like, it is amazing how with a phone with like a jillion gigapixel camera, how at any given moment it's like screaming because you used more than 200K. So anyway, we managed to do a few things like that. I imagine there's more in the future, but it's better now. So I hope you guys like that one. All right. Other things that are of note: ComicBase 26.2 will be making its official release very shortly. Honestly, we had big news to talk about this week, so we figured we'd let that one set for a minute. But in the meantime, one thing that is new, if you download the very latest interim builds, is if you care, and you might not ever care, but if you go to setup and then go to columns to view, we refreshed all the column layouts that were built in. There's sort of stock templates since ComicBase 2020 came around, where you can very easily get yourself into kind of like a very stripped down view, one that's good for data entry, one that's good for like entering lots of custom fields and such. And it'll also remember any way that you move the fields up, down, around, and sideways and so forth. But it's funny because we've actually added a fair number of things out there, and we didn't really go back and tweak how we want all those layouts to appear. So we have done that now and expanded a few things like that. It deals with newspapers and things like that better and so forth. But if that's of interest to you, definitely download the latest ComicBase 26.2 from the interim builds, and you can get that right now. Or if it's not particularly important to you, just wait a week or two, and you'll see it as part of the big update for 26.2. So that is a thing that's going on. All right. With that said, on with the other things. Ishigam says, yeah, the iOS one has not appeared yet. Yeah, not surprising. All right. And this says AA is looking good. Terrific. Yes. Oh, by the way, on the bummer end of things, both Len Straczewski and Jerry Conway died this last week. I don't have a lot to say other than these are guys who are they were the names you saw in the comics that you liked. And it's you miss folks who knew how to write a solidly entertaining comic book consistently from week to week, month to month, and so forth. It's like, I don't remember ever picking up a book from any of these guys and saying, oh, that was terrible, and which is some of the highest praise I can give anyone. So the ability to tell a consistently entertaining story, not to mention, if you're talking about Jerry Conway, he co-created The Punisher and Firestorm and so forth. And if you're talking about Len Straczewski, if you remember like the Malibu line, Prime and things like that, did amazing stuff right there. This are the things just made you happy to be reading superhero comic books in the 90s. And so anyway, I'm very sad to hear them, and Godspeed. So anyway, and let's see. Brian says, can we save custom column layouts? You can, well, it does, but you can't make your own templates. So basically, there's custom layout 0 is always whatever you did to the layout. So what it does is you can like sort of reset to a number of presets, like the basic, the regular, the custom field, and the data entry ones. I think there's 4 sets of presets on the whole thing, and then whatever you do to them from there on out gets remembered from time to time as yours. There isn't like another way to say, and now save this as my own custom layout and then flip between that one. It's theoretically a thing that we could do at some point, but let me tell you the work behind the scenes that, if you could believe the mess of fields that you have to remember on all the whole time, it's a ghastly thing that we've now made a bit more intelligible to ourselves right now. Before then, we literally were working off spreadsheets of what had to go where. But you will understand why it wasn't a very big priority for us to make it so you could add lots and lots of your own. But if that's something that you guys express lots of interest in, like everything else, we're all ears. All right, so let me see what else is going on. Okay, well, let's get on to it. Okay, so so a big a milestone we hit, and honestly, we hit it like 2 weeks ago, but we were too much in the middle of other things to make a big note about it. So if you guys were watching the tickers, you will, watching from week to week, you'll know that like in the middle of the night on like a Sunday, a week and a half back, we finally crossed that magical line of 1.2 million. Now, why is 1.2 million special? It's not. It's a big round number. We've are so used to dealing with fantastically huge numbers when we talk about what's going into ComicBase right now, that basically after we hit, as soon as you say million for anything, you're kind of done until you say 2 million or maybe 1.5 million. I'm going to make slightly the case that we can at least take note of the decimals, 1.1 million, 1.2 million, sir, because we're talking about 100,000 bloody things at that point. I mean, these are more things than we managed to put into ComicBase in like the first 20 years of their existence, and that becomes like the footnote. But with that said, I do want to say 1.2 million covers is where we're at right now. Actually, for you guys keeping score at home, the count as of the showtime was 1,208,654. Yes, we pile these things up fast. So how do you make note of that other than just, well, that's quite a bit large number there, Bickford? What the hell does that mean? Well, so if you took 1,208,654 comic books and laid them end to end, assuming they were all of average size. Some are probably a little bit smaller, others are larger, but let's just say they all work out to your standard 10.25 inches tall. That is going to take you some 195 miles laid end to end, which gets you from New York City to Washington, D.C., if you're going as the crow flies. If you're European, I guess that gets you from Munich to Mainz, and it also gets you all the way up the motorway if you're driving from London to Manchester, which I've actually taken that drive, so that's that's not a bad one. Let's see, if you want to go from European destinations, gets you almost all the way from London to Paris. You wind up just shy of Paris itself. You're outside the Paris suburbs, and if you want to go vertically, it's higher than the cruising altitude of most commercial jets. So if you just want to stack them up on edge somehow with the world's most elaborate card house, that's apparently a thing. If you want to imagine them just laid out on the ground in front of you, I think it gets you from like Chicago to Cincinnati as well. But just imagine that you're leaving the suburbs of Chicago, walking on comics the entire time. That's going to take you 65 hours at the average, walking speed of a human. So I guess that makes it follow the yellow brick or Golden Age road. But 65 hours later, you will arrive at your destination, and by then we'll probably have added a few thousand more. So that's about the pace of what we're doing right now. So I want to say thank you so much to everyone who's contributed to that effort. It's been 32 years, and you could absolutely lose track of all the hundreds of people who have contributed, scans of their own comic books, of comic books that they know, and so forth like that. Just amazing stuff right there. Please do check out the ComicBase leaderboard at comicbase.com, and you'll see some of the top contributors to that effort, including some of the folks who are probably listening to it right now. But amazing stuff. I mean, when you get into the stuff, you think you know a lot about comic books, and I fancy that I do know a few things about comic books, but there is a saying that like none of us know as much as all of us, and this is definitely something that I'm glad we have embraced a long time ago, is that we weren't just going to rely on just the experts we had in the house, but we were really going to turn to all you for your expertise and your specialized knowledge and so forth. I mean, we never could have indexed all the things we did. I mean, no matter how much we spend on comics every month to fill the database and stuff like that, this would never have been possible without all of you. So thank you again for everyone who contributed. It's an amazing effort. So anyway, that's all I guess say about that. So why let's go back to why. Why does this matter, right? So, million point two, comic covers. What's that all about, right? What do you do with them? All right. Well, the very first thing you do with them is, was going to say is cover reference. And at this point, I'm putting, just they say that you say left brain, right brain. Like your left brain is like your logical side, the right brain is like your crazy creative side, your intuitive side. I think a lot of things in life are your right brain decides things, and your left brain has to justify what the right brain just did. And so, what I'm doing right now is I'm saying you don't need to tell my right brain why 1.2 million comic covers is cool, because it's just sitting there picturing that going neat. At that point, I now have to give my left brain some excuses to why you might want to spend any kind of time and money or whatever else to put this into your life. And so let me give you a few of those answers. Number one, cover reference. There are, just to pick an answer, a example straight out of the air, which we talked about just on the pre-show here. There are currently 103 known variants for Absolute Batman number 20. We're talking like a single comic book that's coming out, which apparently is going to have 94 retailer exclusives, 8 open orders, 1 ratio variant, and those are the ones they've announced so far. This is before the convention exclusives, the aftermarket markups, the whatnot versions, the the whatever else. I mean, this is crazy. They have made collecting comics. I mean, on one hand, you're never bored. I mean, there's always stuff to look at, but my God, have they made this involved? Just trying to figure out. I'm looking at a book labeled Absolute Man number 20. Which number 20 is it? And I've got 100 choices as to which one it is. Now, look, I could either do what we used to do in the old days, read down the notes and say, well, let's see here. This is the Bryce Comics Virgin, variant with dark whatever on it, or I could, and try to figure out that that's the V38 variant by doing that, or I could just look down the list, say, oh yeah, it's the one that looks like that, and spot it instantly. Now, a lot of times you can get there by using a barcode, sometimes you can't, but yeah, being able to just look down the list and say, yeah, it's that one. And if you're not sure, click on the thing and see a big blown up cover of that one to say, oh yeah, it's definitely that one. This is the one with the spot red foil covering on the blood dripping from Vampirella. It's like it's great to be able to see this stuff, and it makes modern comic collecting possible. It's if you want to say, why are we even doing ComicBase? It's because it makes having a large collection of comic books in the modern age possible. Other than that, you're left with half-ass solutions, based on the end of somebody's mobile project, or the end of someone's spreadsheet project, or God help you, what everyone else does is they just kind of throw it in the box and pray for the best. Or you try to keep the notes in a spreadsheet or something like that on your own. It's like God help you. But I mean, this is why we put in just ludicrous amounts of effort in order to keep the world of comics straight, and having the photo reference there to make it all make sense is just, it's a godsend. And I'm not going to say at this point it's become essential, so essential at this point that we took the versions. I mean, it was always only ever meant to be the archive edition that had any extensive amount of photo reference in it. That was the entire point of calling it the archive edition. But we've actually gotten to the point where when you have even the free or the express, and then a little bit more of the pro versions, we include, at least in thumbnail size, little tiny images of a lot of pictures, just for the mainstream publishers, the Marvels, the DCs, and the Images and so forth, just to make it possible to cope with being a comic collector in these day and age. Now, obviously, if you get the archive edition, then there's I think there's now over 10,000 publishers in ComicBase, and we can give you the full-size images and all that stuff. And that's definitely the way that you want to experience the product. But just to be able to cope on any level these days, we've been rolling cover reference into the smaller products in at least some way. So it's just, you can't do modern collecting without it, in my opinion. Agent of Camp says, I used to use index cards. Yeah, no, I used to see people going around at comic shows, with little boxes of index cards with binders. I was the guy with the binder with the Spider-Man picture on the front, flipping through the pages printed out of my own spreadsheet. I mean, we've all been there. So, and Jesse Comics says that is ridiculous. Yes, it is. And someone else points out, oh, by the way, reprints. Yeah, so that's a thing. Anyway, so reason number one, cover reference. If you need a rational reason why you want to buy the archive edition or get, as much cover reference in your life as you can, cover reference is absolutely the go-to on that one. Number two, labels. Don't forget, if you're going to ever use real comic books in the real world, because it turns out comic books are actually physical objects for most of us, being able to stick a label on that, preferably with a picture of the comic book, is really bloody handy. So, so yeah, you guys have probably seen on any number of shows that we've done before here that no comic gets into our inventory for the last 10 years or so without having an ID label printed out with the picture right in the upper left-hand corner saying, in bold type right next to it saying, this is Lady Death, All Hallows Eve or whatever else, number one, variation B, it's the one that's described as this kind of cover, and here's a picture of the cover. And so all those things, work very well with each other. Make sure I don't stick the wrong label on the wrong edition. When I'm pulling the things, I can just, if I can't, look into the box to see the whole cover, I can be guiding myself right by the, the spotlight of the label on the cover and so forth. Yeah, the labels really help, and they help on both labels and they also help on reports. So for instance, let me go ahead and let's go to our friend Absolute Batman over here on the demo machine. And hey, that actually switched. All right, so let's go ahead and here I'm just going to print okay, an item checklist for Absolute Batman. Sure, why not? And let's print this out. Wait for the mini PC to spin up. Oh, there we go. So yeah, being able to go down, here's my checklist of Absolute Batman, and here's all the issues, as you go down. And here I actually told it, just show me the main issues. So that's why it's only showing me the A's. If I wanted to, I could go back here and have it show all the variants, and then we get something even more fun. So if we go down here, see it down here where I said only show own plus regular. Let me go ahead and magnify that so you actually can see it. Nope, come on, you can do it. So if I say, come on. Oh, my mouse doesn't want to zoom. Sorry. Okay, wait. But if I say only show own plus regular, if let's turn that off now, and now we get to see, here's all the variants for Absolute Batman. Yes, this is a title that has not even gone 20 issues officially right now, who I believe already has 380 things. So yes, and here's all the issues that have come out from Absolute Batman. And notice how it's really, really great to be able to see just glancing down. Oh yeah, this one down here. It's it's the fourth printing, cover B by Simone DeMeo, etc. Or I could just say, yeah, it's the one with Batman on the white background with the little orangey bit up top. I mean, it really helps to just have that picture there. And again, it eliminates all doubt when you're going in and trying to evaluate things and so forth, and figure out, when I'm talking about, the J variant or the third printing of this thing and so forth, which one am I really talking about? It eliminates all doubt. So pictures are really bloody useful. All right. Number three, that was number three, was reporting. By the way, a quick tip for people, if they want to know how to report and save with pictures, that is a very useful thing to do. I don't actually suggest these days that most people in most circumstances actually print out their reports, because I mean, if you've got a small collection, sure, go for it. I mean, if you're me, back when I could print out a spreadsheet and keep it in a reasonable number of pages in a 3-ring binder, if you're still there, Godspeed. Absolutely print those things. The reports look lovely and so forth. But most of the time these days, I'm actually I'm saving my reports either as a HTML file, so I'm viewing it on another device like a phone or a computer, or I'm saving as a PDF file like I want to mail it to someone, or I want to get that. But a really good way, if you want to embed the pictures right into the reports themselves, is if you go ahead and preview. So don't say print, hit preview, and then when you go to the preview of the report, if I actually, let me go ahead and just show it to you here. There's an idea. Let me switch my computer back there. All right, so if I say print over here, I'm going to hit this preview button. And now, in this upper left-hand corner, right up here, is this very, very badly designed icon. This came from Krista Reports. Yes, I'm criticizing their UI development. But if you say export report on this one, at that point, then you can say, I want to save this as, and honestly, the only good choice here is a PDF. You can save it in a variety of other formats, but the only useful one really is a PDF file, so Acrobat. And that will embed all the pictures in there as well, so that you can take it, print it, and so forth. And you don't need to worry about having any of the picture files around. They're always going to be with you and so forth, and it's really bloody handy. All right, so with that said, all right, number 4, screensaver. Yeah, okay, here, let me go back to that machine now that I've done that. And yeah, so I just gotta say, I dig this. Yeah, I mean, it's a screensaver, right? Who cares, right? But if you have the archive edition of ComicBase, and forgive me, this does not come with any of the other editions, it only comes with archive and up, you get a screensaver called the ComicBase Cover Gallery. Along with these built-in ones with Windows, but you may have others. But if you go in here, you can say, all right, look, I want to see which media you want to show. I want to show everything. I want to show comics, books, magazines, anything, etc. You can say, only show me the things that are actually in my collection. Whether or not you want to, exclude mature titles, let them be in there. You could say, only show me mature titles. It's your preference. Run the preference for the speed of the whole thing, and whether or not you want to allow it to go into full screen mode when it hits a big cover. And then when you go ahead and run this thing, it's really cool, and it'll run on as many monitors as you've got. And so it turns out, if you're one of these guys with like 1 million monitors in your setup, it just gets super cool, because then it goes through here and it just starts cycling all the different issues. And if you see something you like, you can actually just sort of wave over it. It'll tell you what the thing was. So very cool stuff, kind of hypnotizing, I will warn you. But that is the ComicBase Cover Gallery screensaver, and it's just kind of neat. So let me see here. Aura says, oh, hey, Dust Space, the final frontier, better late than never. Hey, welcome from Minneapolis. And let's see here. Pro tip, if you enter a brand new issue in ComicBase, don't print your label until the book has been approved. That from Agent of Camp, absolutely. If you're submitting a brand new book we haven't seen before, and there's any doubt as to whether this thing's coming in under one title or another title, or the J variant or the Q variant or whatever else, yeah, wait till the actual update has the thing in there, and then print our label. So that's probably easy to go. Chris says he loves the screensaver. Excellent. All right, so and then number 5. I'm just going to say, the last reason you want to worry about having a lot of cover images in your life is, let's face it, they're just plain cool. I used to order clip art sets back in the early days of CDs, and they would come in these giant boxes with 50 or 60 CDs worth of stuff, along with a large booklet which had thumbnails of what all the graphics were. And the idea being, back in the day when we had clip art, is that you say things like, oh, I got to put out the company newsletter and I have to invite people to the pizza party on Friday, so let's go ahead and scan the index for pizza. Oh, all right, here's all pictures of pizza, the pizza party. Great, I'll take this one here and we'll slap it onto the newsletter, and we'll do that. And this, back in the 90s, think of the early days, even pre The Office, this is how we assembled things. Anyway, back then, I would, if you had told me that there would someday be something that's the equivalent of not of 60 CDs worth of data, but probably more like 600, and it's all comic covers, I would have lost my mind. So it is just really neat having the ability to pull up, say, like, look, we were just talking about Wambi the Jungle Boy. I would like to be able to pull up a high-res cover of that. The ability to just have it there is just neat. And we had a big discussion going in the internal Slack forums about AI and being able to pose different scenes. Like I'd mentioned that one of the things that AI actually has a lot of trouble with is copyrighted images, or for that matter, things with a lot of text. And comic books seem to be a worst case on both grounds. Of they can, if you say things like, show me an old desk from the 1950s scattered with completely real comic books of the era. Some people were showing their renderings that came from that, and they'd be these amazing looking desks with perfect lighting filtering through, and old cigarettes stubbed out into a period era, ashtray with a Bakelite rotary phone at the edge of the desk, and all these things that say like "Haunt of Horror" and things like that scattered across the whole thing, and it looked amazing until you look at it. 'Cause, like my first inclination whenever I see this one is, oh, that's so cool. And then because you're a collector, you want to stare at it and say, which issue of Haunt of Fear is that? And the answer, of course, is it's no real issue of Haunt of Fear. They've kind of copied the vibe of Haunt of Fear. They kind of, AI knows what a Haunt of Fear ought to look like, and so they'll put it in there, but then they'll get it wrong. I mean, the logotype will have the right styling, but the letters sometimes won't make any sense at all. They'll spell horror with 5 R's. Anything that's vertical text, like, along the banners, always inevitably gets, mangled. But then if you just get fascinated by the actual thing, you're like, oh, there was a comic that it created called Murder, Morphine, and Me. I'm thinking, this sounds amazing. What's an issue of Murder, Morphine, and Me #1 going to set me back? And you realize that comic never existed, and I'm in a position to know. It's just the thing with image generation. Typically, they'll be based around a technique called stable diffusion. Is they know what these things kind of ought to look like, but even if you give them examples from real life and say, I want you to start with this, it will almost inevitably morph it into something which isn't quite that anymore, either because of copyright issues or because of just the limitations of the stable diffusion algorithm. Now, there's been a lot of progress on that front of trying to keep these things consistent and so forth, but you always you always wind up with very strange things if you know to stare at the details, which that's the whole thing about as collectors, is that we want to stare at the details, because how many times in our life do we get to hold a copy of Tales from the Crypt number 23 in our hands? It's like it doesn't happen that often, so when you do, you just want to study it, and then you realize this is all madness. Like the words don't make sense and so forth. But if you were going to do any kind of projects and things like this, absolutely, it's just kind of neat having all this photo reference just sitting there for you. Now, slight disclaimer, we spent years, and I do mean years, getting the permissions from anyone who might be of a mind to push the fair use case on this one, because copyright images, and pretty much everything that is past, well, I mean, some things prior to about 1955 have slipped into public domain, in the world of comic books, but precious little, and certainly nothing from Marvel, DC, and so forth. But yeah, we spent a lot of time contacting the legal representatives of all these companies and saying, "Hi, we run a comic book database. We would like to be able to use your images in the whole thing. May we please?" And we are going to make sure to cite your copyright notice every time we do that. So yes, there's a reason that we have all those things, the copyright notices and so forth that print out when you do things with us. And you're allowed, when you use ComicBase, to use these things for your own personal uses for these things within the the license on the box and everything. But yes, including the copyright notice is definitely a very important part of that. So do pay attention to that one. It just because you bought it as part of ComicBase doesn't mean like, oh, it's yours now and you can do whatever you want with it and use it as the sign for your store. No, that's not the way copyright works. But anyway, but yeah, so you are allowed to use these things for your personal purposes, within the realm of ComicBase. But yeah, but do read the license agreement, please. I beg you. So, all right. But that said, it is cool just having this stuff there. Now, questions people get all the time, they say, well, okay, that's 1.2 million images. Doesn't that take up a lot of space? And here's where we get to something which, forgive me if you've all heard it before, but the answer is, yeah, no, if it takes up stupid amounts of space. If you saw what it takes up on our servers, it's nearly a terabyte. But how much space does it take on your disk? About 12 gigs, which is to say not all that much. And how does that work? And the way it works is that thing, like, let's go back to our friend over there at the item checklist. You notice how we have these little thumbnails of absolute Batman number 1A and so forth. We do a thing in ComicBase where when you first, let me go ahead and pull up I guess I got to close this window. Hold on a second. I got two modal windows on top of each other. Let me close them both. Okay, so when you're looking at, say, 18V here, now I'm looking at the list and I can tell this is the one with the yellow top, and this is the one with where it comes. As soon as I click on it, it went and it showed me, and here's this, whatever this is in all its glory, right? And it took, again, now I'm going to click on the V one now, and it's kind of like the same thing, but it's yellow, right? In that split second that I clicked on it, the fact I actually interacted with it, up until that moment, the thing that was on my computer was this little tiny image. This an image is bigger than this. So if I have bigger thumbnails on, it's an image that's about 256 pixels tall. But it's just enough to kind of get a sense of the cover, but not enough to see anything in particular about it. The second you click on the other hand, it downloads the full res version of that image and displays that to me. And the nice thing about that is because it doesn't need to be on a disk at this point. It's just downloading over the internet. I don't need to compress that image very heavy. I can actually show a really nice copy of that image. It won't have a lot of JPEG banding and things like that, which I would have to have if I was trying to still squish this on a even a Blu-ray disc, much less a DVD or a CD. This image would look like absolute hell, but because I'm downloading it and I'm downloading it on demand, I can get the thing really, really quickly, and it will look really, really great. Well, so the nice thing here is there's a kind of like fundamental math thing about dealing with big numbers like this, is that if I'm going to give you a number like 1.2 million images, something that if I literally printed them all out comic sized and I want to just lay them out in front of myself and walk on top of them, would take me over 2 days to accomplish, almost 3 days without stopping for bathroom breaks. If we're talking about that number of images, I might be interested in any subsection of those. And there's no telling which ones I might be interested in. I mean, you could guess, Marvel, DC will have an outsized share, but do I care about Fury of Firestorm? Maybe I really, really, really care. Maybe I don't care in the slightest. I may never go to more than, just the top of that title just to see, okay, I guess this Firestorm. Or it might be like, oh my God, that was, Jerry Conway. I want to see all his stuff, in which case I might want to study every one of the images. What it does with this little magic trick where we download the thumbnails, and the thumbnails are really small and they don't occupy much disk space at all. And they take 20, 30 minutes depending on your internet speed to download the very first time. But all things considered, not that bad. Not compared to, it used to take like hours and hours to pull a fraction of that number of images off disks. But what we do is we download the thumbnails and then we swap them out magically as you use them for much nicer versions than we ever could have put on the disc. But because we only do that when you interact with them on some level, right? So the images that came down in thumbnail form are actually big enough to show up and print nicely on reports and labels and things like that. We don't need to do anything extra with those. But for any time you actually want to stare at the image, you just want to look at it. So you've ever clicked on it. At that point, we've done that trick where we download the full-size image. But because you're only going to ever do that for a tiny proportion of the vast number of titles and issues that are in ComicBase, the actual hit to your hard disk is not that bad. I think the upper end of what I've heard reported is like 50 gigs of total that people have done just organically from downloading. And this is by like our most hardcore users who are hitting this thing every single day. For most people, 12 to 15 gigs pretty much gets you there. And again, it creeps up a bit the more you deal with it, but it creeps up a bit. It doesn't creep up by like terabytes. Whereas if you look back at our server, that's kind of where we're at right now. We have really scary looking disk arrays that serve all this stuff up to you, as well as other scary looking disk arrays that back up those first scary disk arrays. So that's what it looks like on our end. And you don't want to have that in your life. So yeah, this whole thing where like you've got the at a glance reference instantly, but I get the deep reference just all I had to do is click, that winds up really being like the best of both worlds. And so it's really quite the way to go, I'm going to say. All right. I see some questions came in here. Yes, Asian Camp says, who else has scrolled through cover images and realized they've been doing it for over an hour? Yeah, guilty on that one. I'll definitely say. Let me switch back to the main camera here. Let's see here. Steve says, enhancement of screen zero will be to select the media to show, i.e. comics and books only, or books and magazines, etc. Yeah, right now we've got like a pick one or pick all. I guess we could go pick one by one. And currently, yeah, so we got that. And let me see here. And some of the people play with the AI said, yeah, I did the best I could. Yeah, no, we've done the best we could. And in the end, when we want to put together an image that involves like showing lots of pictures like the one for the live stream here, This one right there. That involves us literally going to ComicBase, lining up a whole bunch of pictures in a grid, skewing the grid. I mean, this is a Photoshop job. This isn't an AI job. We just got out the images and comp them up, fairly traditionally as these things go. But it's funny because one thing that I wish that we could do what the AI gives you almost for free, which is, I mean, if I wanted to set up a photo shoot to just talk about how much we love comics and just the nostalgia of being a comic collector, what AI gave you for free in those images was the desk and the Bakelite rotary phone and the periods ashtray with the cigarettes stubbed out in it and everything. I mean, the rest of the scene looked perfect, and honestly, the comics look perfect unless you were a comic collector, in which case they all fall apart and it drives you mad. But everything else, the scene was exactly right. It was photo ready. You could literally gone into the magazine with that. But for us to use anything like that image in real life, you either have to go and be like, just give me the desk and I'll comp in digitally the comics I wanted, which actually is really hard to do in a convincing way. Or you'd have to go in there and say, okay, I'm now going to see, all right, what do I got to do here? I say, I'm going to have to get my hands on about $10,000 worth of old Golden Age comic books. I'm going to need to talk to a furniture rental place to get the right period prop pieces for this, that, the other thing. I'm going to have to rent, the studio. I'm going to have to light the studio. I've got to get, it's amazing how expensive that photo shoot would be if we were going to do it. Whereas it's like a 30-second prompt in Gemini, except that it can't get the comics right. So absolutely maddening. So it's coming. I mean, they'll get it right someday, I hope. I think the only thing that would prevent it from being gotten right is either that there's some hard limit to the way the model works that we just don't get. I mean, there are weird things about AI that they're kind of endemic to the way they work, and they seem crazy to you at first. Like, why would a model hallucinate? Why wouldn't you just say, hey, if you find that you need to go and make up something, how about don't, and just say, I don't know? How hard would that be to do? And apparently it's really freaking hard because of the way that the chains are assembled and so forth, the transformer logic. I mean, it's one of those things that they're working hard. It's getting better, but they have a long way from cracking that one. The other thing is with stable diffusion models, where you're basically starting out with noise and morphing it into the thing that looks like the prompt. There are apparently endemic things to that process that make it screw up details, especially text. And there are different techniques that people are using to override that, and some are getting some really excellent results. I mean, I've seen some models that will do things like, say, give me a chart of the breakdown of the human eye or whatever else, and they'll get it all right, except that, every once in a while they'll be like, yeah, I'm just going to completely mislabel one part of it for no apparently explainable reason. But the parts they get right are amazing. We're getting there. It's gotten so much better than it used to be, but we're not there yet. So that's the thing. Let's see here. HTCamp says, when the high-res image is downloaded, is it a temporary file or permanent download? It's a permanent download. It's just like the others. It's just larger. So it doesn't go away or anything. I mean, you could blow it away and then download it again, but there's no reason you would want to make it go away. And then yes, ComicBase After Dark soon. I think that'd be a good idea. I'll be honest with you guys. After we're done in a bit, my plans, we've got some family stuff that's wrapping up this week, and then I think I'm going to try to get off to Florida for a bit, because I don't know if you guys noticed, but I've been working really, really hard lately, and I need some time at the beach. But after that, I would love to have a ComicBase After Dark. That would be good. Oh, so anyway, last thing I want to say about the pictures. So yes, the way to do pictures these days definitely is just we've loaded it right to ComicBase these days. The easiest way to go, the way I would definitely recommend it for everyone, is just install ComicBase. First time you launch it, it'll say, hey, now you want to install the pictures? Say yes. It'll download them all. If you missed it at that point, or any other point, you can go ahead and do it another way. Just go down here to go to File, go to File Tools, and go to Manage Pictures and Movies down here. And down here, it'll say reinstall pictures. What that'll do, or you could install from disk if you have disks. But again, I would suggest for people, and we're actually getting rid of disks after this release because we have too many pictures and we have to squeeze them too hard for the whole thing to be really worth it anymore. Just say reinstall pictures. It'll download all the latest quick start pictures from the web, and it'll automatically turn on the setting to upsize your pictures when you click on things, and from there you're off to the races. But that's the way to go. Is just go ahead and file tools, manage pictures, movies, click that reinstall pictures button, and then it'll pull down the latest. Now, if you're thinking of doing that, I would wait until like tomorrow to do the very latest, because if you haven't done it then, wait till we push the very latest one with the updates from this week in it, because you want to, if you're going to go through the trouble blowing the 20 minutes to do, you may as well get the very, very latest set. So that's a thing. All right, so what else have I said? And I think I said, don't get them off disks anymore. I mean, if you have just an extreme example, like, I don't know, we don't do the internet where I'm at or something, it's still possible to get them on discs, but we've announced this is our last disc-based release on pictures, just because the number of pictures and the capacity of any Blu-ray discs that anyone actually owns, it's just outstripped it. And so it's time to pack that one in. So this is the last one where we'll be actually pressing discs that go with ComicBase. Everything else will be a digital download after that. But anyway, so with that said, I do have one other announcement, and that is, as we are wont to do when we pass big, large, round numbers like this, if you have not yet gotten a hold of the archive edition for yourself, so just for refresher purposes on things, we offer a bunch of different sizes of the program. There's a free version that handles for nothing. You pay nothing. It's called ComicBase Free. It's not a deceptive name. Its cost is zero, but it'll handle collections up to 500 issues. You can't really download updates with it. It doesn't have a lot of the more features. It's basically, it's a nice demo, and it runs forever for up to 500 comics. As soon as you enter your 501st comic, it says like, yeah, no, we told you that 500 thing. Yeah, you need to pay for something now because we're not going to keep running. Anyway, so for the actual real version of the ComicBase, we have ComicBase Express. Think of that as like the Overstreet Guide on steroids. But no, it's actually much more than that. But it's all the pricing, all the all the important information on 1.5 million comic books and millions of other books, magazines, newspapers, as well as I think it's about 300,000 of the little thumbnail images for primarily the big heavy hitters, the Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, those guys like that, and that's like $60. There's and then it also comes with a year of price updates and content updates. With all of them come with that. So if we ship any new versions during that year, you get all that as part of the whole process. But anyway, after that comes the Pro. The Pro is really cool. It adds a lot of very if you're serious about comic books, I'd say that's the one to start with. It includes a lot more extensive, creator credits, a lot more information about the publishers and so forth. It gives you custom fields so you can track a lot more information about the different things. It includes the ability to have a barcode scanner so you can just beep things in runs and just get your collection entered very, very quickly that way. A lot of, really great program features. It's a real sweet spot on that one, as well as, hundreds of, thousands of little thumbnail cover images. It goes a bit broader. There's about 3 dozen publishers that are represented at that point. You start seeing some manga. You start seeing some of the things like Valiant get represented and so forth. But again, if you start talking about the obscure guys, no way. No, things don't fit. But anyway, the really fun editions start for me with Archive Edition and 4K Archive. They're basically the same idea. Archive Edition is the idea that it's our whole art library is now at your disposal. You've got all the features that Pro had in terms of the program. You get a few actually extra ones that will allow you to do things to enable e-commerce and stuff. If you're interested in that sort of thing, there are a couple things that are exclusive to the archive on that, but primarily from the program capability standpoint, Pro and Archive are pretty similar. Where they differ is really it's all about pictures. Is that instead of having information from about 3 dozen big publishers, you've got information on like 10,000 publishers for all the pictures, and it's every picture we've ever seen. And then every week as we get new pictures in, and we've been running like a slow week from us now. It's not really a joke. It's like 5,000 new pictures in a week. As those come in, you guys have the ability then to see all them at full size. Whereas the other ones, you're locked down to thumbnails, even if they're part of the set that you get, that are from the publishers that you're, supported. With the archive edition, you get all the publishers and you get them all at full size. And then 4K archive is just, I think it's like an extra, a little bit more, but you get them at even higher resolution, even bigger. So it's like the difference between like standard definition and, or actually full HD is what they call, 1080p, whatever, and 4K. It's exactly that. And so you can get them up to like 3840 resolution. And when they come down, it's just eye candy as far as the eye can see. And if you have a 4K monitor, it's very cool. Anyway, because we've hit the big round number, we of course had to do something to celebrate this one. So for a bit, and I'm not going to say how long a bit is, it's at least a couple of days, you can actually, if you don't have the 4K or the regular archive editions, and those are the only versions we're doing this for, because again, we're showing off the cool stuff that we just did. Those ones are now actually on sale. So check out the website on the top of that one at ComicBase.com. And I think we knock off, I think it goes up to like 33% off. It's only those two editions. So if you're thinking of upgrading, if you've got one of the smaller editions like the Express or the Pro or like that, and you're thinking, hey, now's your time to get that archive. And so, yes, now is your time to get that archive. And I want to say it's like $109, and I think it might even be less if you turn on the auto renewal. So check out the site on that one. It depends on what version you're coming from, what the actual price is on that one. But it's a pretty heavy discount, and we're going to keep that rolling for a little bit. So check the site out, and we hope you dig it. So anyway, with that said, Cap says, does the free version still have access to the mobile app? It does. So yeah, no, it's just that's something we turned on for all the editions now, is that even the free editions can work on mobile. So you might have gotten the idea that mobile is going to be a bit of a direction for us in the future. Yeah, that's the thing. All right, so a bit of announcement before we get out of here. PSAs. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. That's, it's my duty as a podcaster to let you remind of that. If this is the sort of thing you like, this is the sort of thing we do. And if you hit that like button, it makes us feel better about ourselves. And, we keep on doing it. Don't forget, we also have ComicBase message boards at forums.comicbase.com. And we have a dedicated thread on the message board, so you can request live stream topics and demos. And don't forget to check out Atomic Avenue and patronize your fellow sellers out there and check out some really cool stuff there. I think you're going to really dig it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. And I will see you all on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.